So he's saying that because Haitians don't uh, teach the law, that means that we can't be the Levites. But he affirmed that the Limbo were Levites based off of DNA. But according to a book called The Black Jews of Africa, History, Religion, and Identity, most Limba are members of Christian churches, but some who live in Zimbabwe are Muslims. So that means that most Limba are not teaching the people the laws either. So would that then disqualify them, according to his logic, from being Levites? See, but here's the thing. According to the Bible, the Levites in the last days would not be teaching the law. So let's read this. Ezekiel 44 and starting at 10. And the Levites that are gone away from me when Israel went astray, which went astray from me after their idols, they shall even bear their iniquity. On top of that, admittedly, the majority of Jewry is secular. So that means the majority of people who would be Kohanim do not teach Israel their laws either. Would that then disqualify them? Do we see how problematic and contradictory the logic of Dr. Michael Brown is here? He also said a couple other very interesting things. He said he did not mention Igbo particularly. Well, yes, you did. In a video on your channel called Has the World Gone Crazy 10 years ago, I mean, not 10 years ago, 10 days ago, you affirmed the legitimacy of the Igbo's claim to Israelite descent, right? Moving on. He also said, yeah, so he also talked about the tradition and as if the tradition validates them. But in his book, the 60 questions, right? 60 questions, I think, to ask, or 60 questions for a Jewish man about Jesus, something to that effect. Forgive me if I'm misquoting the title of his book. But on page 96, he affirms that many Israelites, in fact, lost their identity. So the keeping of the traditions does not validate or invalidate anybody from being an Israelite, right? He also went to Deuteronomy 28 and 62 and said, because there's so many Black and Hispanic people, that means we can't be Israelites. Well, let's read Hosea 1 and 10. It reads, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. So yes, at a time there might have been a small remnant, but he and I both know that Deuteronomy 28 happens cyclically, and not every single curse applies at every single time and instance. Like every time Israel went under curses, the 68th verse, they didn't always go into slavery on ships to Egypt. Now, did they? Now, he says that in order for us to be Israelites, Deuteronomy 28 and 68 would have to be contradicted. I need him to demonstrate when the Ashkenazi Jews fulfilled Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And if I follow your logic, that means that you guys can't be Jews either now. But how silly is that? Because we all know that at different times, different sectors of those curses are susceptible to befall the Israelites anytime they're backslidden or in iniquity, right? And then also, I've not mentioned Khazars at all. So all that Khazar talk, he's just wasting time and beating up a straw man. I have made zero mention of the Khazars whatsoever in my argumentation. I'm actually taking a look at the research done by Ashkenazi Jewish geneticists and linguists, and we're looking at the conclusions that they are coming to. Nothing that he's saying as far as DNA actually disproves anything that I'm forwarding. He's just saying, I mean, the people who are saying we're Jews, we're related, and we have some link back to the Middle East genetically. None of that substantiates somebody as being an Israelite. I'm going to go now back to my presentation if I could, okay? There we go. Okay, perfect.
Briefly pause it.
Thank you.
Until you start speaking again.
All right, I'm ready. Yeah, so let's go into Paul Wechsler, an Ashkenazi Jewish linguist, and let's take a look at, and professor of linguistics at Tel Aviv University. Let's take a look at what he had to say, right? Recently, the geographical origins of Ashkenazi Jews and their native language Yiddish were investigated by applying the geographic population structure to a cohort of exclusively Yiddish-speaking and multilingual Ashkenazi Jews. GPS localized most Ashkenazi Jews along major ancient trade routes in northeastern Turkey adjacent to primeval villages with names that resemble the word Ashkenaz. These findings were compatible with the hypothesis of an Irano-Turco-Slavic origin for Ashkenazi Jews and a Slavic origin for Yiddish, and at odds with the Rhineland hypothesis advocating a Levantine origin for Ashkenazi Jews. So the findings of this Ashkenazi Jew and the team that he went into linguistically and genetically studied these people, the Ashkenazi Jews, he came to the conclusion that they actually are not from the Levant or the Middle East. And German origins for Yiddish. We discussed genetic structure of Ashkenazi Jews and their geographical origins as inferred from multiple studies, employing both modern and ancient and original ancient DNA analysis. We provide additional validation to the non-Levantine or non-Middle Eastern origin of Ashkenazi Jews using ancient DNA from the Near East and Levant. So they went and got Middle Eastern ancient DNA, and it disqualified the Ashkenazi Jews from that being their place of origin. This is an Ashkenazi Jew himself, again, who is a professor of linguistics at Tel Aviv University, right? And our results reinforce the non-Levantine origin of the Ashkenazi Jews. And again, you can go to this. This is a peer-reviewed article in the Frontiers in Genetics called The Origin of the Ashkenaz, Ashkenazic, and Yiddish. Moving on. More problems with DNA and linguistics. They're alleging their DNA haplogroups and linguistics of a Levantine origin proves they're children of Israel. The problem with that is we say they're Edomites. Edomites' DNA would say they're from the Levant, and their language would match as they spoke Hebrew as well. The same goes for Canaanites, Moabites, Ammonites, and others. So just as they're trying to utilize this to make them validate that they're Israelites, we can easily use the same exact information and say they're Edomites with it, right? Moving on. Not to mention the Ashkenazi Jews come from primarily 4 different haplogroups, J1, J2, E1B1E, and R1A. If they are the legit children of Jacob, why don't they all come from one? Now, again, I don't subscribe to the idea that a DNA haplogroup could trace you back into antiquity. I simply don't. But he does, and he's using it. He's hinging his argumentation upon it, right? There is no one haplogroup amongst them that is a majority. Therefore, if we just went with one of them, just one haplogroup, as being Jacob's haplogroup, the majority of them would still be disqualified from being the legitimate children of Israel. What do I mean? There was a test done in 2004 on over 400 Jews. This is the largest test study that I can find. And take a look. So if we just chose one, let's say we said E1B1B was Jacob's haplogroup, right? That means that 84% of Ashkenazi Jews would be disqualified, right? If I chose G2C, 92% of Ashkenazi Jews disqualified. J1 or J2, 81% of Ashkenazi Jews would be disqualified. Q1, 94% of Ashkenazi Jews would be disqualified, right? So on and so forth. So this alleged evidence that he has so much faith in actually totally works against him. Moving on. But let's follow Dr. Brown's logic for a second.
Wash your hands,
Right?
okay?
I'm good. I'm done.
I apologize. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. I was just trying to do it early because you got a little break. I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. So let's look at the Mexicans, because he said, ain't no way the Mexicans are Issachar. Okay, if we follow Dr. Brown's logic, a significant amount of the Mexican population belongs to the haplogroup Q, which is present in antiquity in the Levant, right? So when Spaniards came, right, they noticed that the tribe of Issachar, the Mexicans, right, the indigenous Mexicans had obsidian knives that they used for circumcision, which is known as a Jewish rite. So here we see a tradition. We see DNA linking them to the Middle East, and we see a Jewish tradition, right? It also says the Nahua Uto-Aztecan language itself has been shown to have many Hebraic Semitic roots and can be traced to northwest Palestine, where parts of the Israelite tribe of Issachar settled. And this is via Robin Morant, a historian from the University of Manchester and the University of California at Riverside, right? Moving on. This also, he says there's no ancient oral tradition that says that these people are from the tribe of Issachar. The Mexicans originally of the 10 tribes captured by Salmanassar and of the family of Issachar, whom the Indians recognize as their special ancestor. What? Right? So if we follow Dr. Brown's logic, we have genetic and linguistic evidence coupled with tradition that ties Mexican people to the tribe of Issachar. We also have a city in Mexico called Issachar de Matamoros, in southwestern part of Mexican state of Puebla. Puebla is Spanish for village. So basically this place is called the village of Issachar. So that checks off the tribe of Issachar by all the standards in which Dr. Michael Brown told me to do, and it proves them and it links them directly to him genetically, traditionally, and linguistically. Moving on.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Here we see in Deuteronomy 28:45, Deuteronomy 28:45 to 46, that the curses will be upon the Israelites for a sign forever. This would be a token, a banner, an omen, and we're going to go more into that. Most High will on my next round. All praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. I yield my time with that.